Welcome to r/relationships, where OP is very likely going to be murdered. Our next Reddit post is from Angel Peach. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and I'm terrified that my boyfriend, who's 26, will end up killing me. But I'm scared to tell anyone what's happening. Advice? It wasn't always like this. We were chatting for like 9 months on and off, and after putting it off for a while, because he had F-boy vibes at the start, we finally met up properly last year, and it was instant sparks and chemistry. Like, we realized we were from small towns close to each other and knew the same people. I just instantly felt at home with him. Fast forward to now. We've been living together since the start of this year. I helped him get back on his feet, helped him write his resume, helped him launch a business, and he now makes more money than ever. In the time we first got together, I did see some red flags in terms of conflict style. He seemed to go for the jugular quite quickly with what he'd say in arguments, throw things, call everything and everyone around him grunts, but I didn't think much of it at the time. After moving in together, our feelings grew stronger, but I began to be exposed to his true nature. Quickly, he became extremely nitpicky and impatient with me, often calling me a stupid B-word, and trying to paint a narrative of me being lazy despite the expectation that I clean, cook all food for him, do his laundry, put his laundry away, look after our pet, all while working a 9 to 5. Early on, I became frustrated by his lack of appreciation, given that I paid for everything and I just expected him to focus on his dream. I'm not expecting thank yous, just an understanding of why I'm tired or unable to cook to his standards. He never says when he's coming back from work as he has trust issues, but if I cook too early and it needs reheating, he will point blank refuse the food because it has to go in a microwave. His demands eventually took their toll on my work performance and ultimately cost me my job at one of the biggest publishers in the world, something I worked extremely hard for. Now, that gets used against me in arguments as an example of me being slow, even though he barely has any qualifications and I spent my entire life and career researching and writing, and attended a world-class university. None of that matters, by the way. I just wanted to illustrate how strange it is that I'm being belittled in that way. When this belittling began, it caught me by surprise, but I would highlight the differences in our educational backgrounds as a reminder that I'm not stupid, compared to him at least. The first day I challenged him, he spewed a load of horrible insults at me, which is fine as I can give as much as I can get when people start talking nasty like that. And I think he was surprised at how much I stood up for myself. Then he strangled me. Like, out of nowhere, both hands around my neck. I thought my eyes were going to pop out. I was stunned. I'd literally told friends and family he would never do anything like that to me, and he said so himself. He was so protective over me. Anyway, after he strangled me, I tried to leave the living room immediately and call the cops. He instantly grabbed my phone and wouldn't let me or my phone go until we talked things through, which is so heartbreaking because if he had just let me go, I would have ended it and we could have parted ways nicely. I've never been in this situation before, and when he was in tears begging for a second chance, I looked to his better nature and decided to stay. Around this time, he was informed that he suffers from bipolar disorder, which explained everything, which gave me slightly more patience towards his cruel words and roller coaster emotions, as long as he saw it and stuck to treatment. But the beatings and aggressive behavior have become overwhelming. Constantly being accused of not listening or cheating every single day, and my options are to either ignore him and have my character assassinated or fight back and risk escalation. I've lost the will to continue to try to fight back, which often leads to me getting hurt even more. The choking and strangulation has become a part of everyday conflict resolution, and regardless of my pleas for him to leave, he always tells me he isn't going anywhere, and if I tell anyone what's happening, he's going to kill me. He'd already drilled into my brain that I shouldn't speak to my family or friends about his actions or our conflicts or bad stuff because it'll lead them to dislike him and then he'll leave. They already dislike him anyway and call him things like leech when I bring him up. But it just makes me feel like I have no one to talk to about this stuff anymore. It's draining me completely, destroying my confidence and making the job hunt 10 times worse. I've been nursing a broken hand for the last few weeks after what was, at that time, the worst attack. Afterwards, he lied and claimed that I hit him first, which I never have, and that it was self-defense. But mind you, I'm like 54 kilograms and he's built like an NBA player, 6'5". What would I gain from hitting him first? I've only ever fought back after being choked or strangled because, in my opinion, once you cross that line, I'm literally fighting for my life. And when he strangles me, he has a look of total craziness and loss of control in his eyes, piercing blue iris and tiny pupils the size of pinholes. I told him 2 weeks ago when that altercation happened that I thought he was going to kill me. This week, I'm in bed with what feels like a broken foot and hand after the worst attack to date, which escalated from him trying to call me lazy again. I responded to that insult in a way he didn't like, and was punched in the head, jaw, temple, and thrown over the coffee table. And when I began to fight back, he caught my foot and crushed my toes with his hand, which I'm sure has caused a fracture. At this point, I couldn't walk, but was determined to get my phone back to call the cops and finally put an end to this. But as I walked out the room, he grabbed my head from behind and blasted it into the ledge of the door. As I was dazed, he told me that if I called the cops, he would kill me. I said, "Go on then, do it." And then he spat in my face. I can hear him in the living room cocking his newly purchased firearm right now, while I'm in the bedroom practically paralyzed. He did the usual cry, apologize, and tell me nice things about myself song and dance. But I'm now terrified I'm going to end up dead at his hands. We both love each other. Oh, Jesus, OP, come on. We both love each other deeply, but I fear this is the only type of love that he knows, and I can't understand it. I don't get it. Is it genuinely always my fault for apparently not ever listening? Was this always going to happen? Is it ever going to stop? Will I ever be able to see him the same again? I'm genuinely traumatized because this is the first time I've ever lived with a guy, and I've always tried to believe everyone has a good heart, and I hate turning my back on people who are struggling, especially mentally. And he can be so sweet, attentive, and gentle, and I felt so proud that someone so outwardly acting like a lad could reserve his vulnerable side for me. So I felt so safe and heard initially. He takes criticisms as attacks, and this can quickly escalate something mundane to end with me needing hospital care. I worry I'm going to get seriously hurt, in every sense of the word, and I'm struggling about whether I stay or leave. And right now my injuries mean I couldn't physically leave even if I wanted to. Every time I try to leave, he talks about how everyone runs away from him, and that I deserve better than him after the way he's treated me, and usually says something suicidal. I saw fresh self-harm wounds on him, and now my head's scrambled. I fear he might do something silly if I try to leave. Advice? OP, you asked earlier, will this ever end? Yeah, it'll end when he kills you, man. This dude is straight up going to murder you. I've heard this statistic before, and here someone is putting it in the comments, which is not surprising because it's super relevant. Underdark Kira says, I'm going to say this not to scare you. I'm going to say this to make the situation crystal clear, even through your struggle on whether you stay or leave. Strangulation is one of the strongest predictors of homicide in abusive relationships. The chance of being murdered goes up by 750% within the next year. You need to be discreet and you need to leave. The most vulnerable and dangerous time for a domestic violence survivor is when they find the strength and courage to leave their abuser. There are agencies that will work with you without flagging his attention and develop a safety plan. This will cover while you still live with him, during the process of leaving and after you've left. Yeah, OP, I wouldn't be surprised if this guy shoots you and then shoots himself. Our next Reddit post is from Throwaway Jazz Likes. I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I love my boyfriend who's 32, but he's flat broke, and I'm growing resentful after 4 years together. I love my boyfriend. He's great, but he's flat broke. I mean broke. We've been living together for 3 years now, and I pay the majority of the bills because he doesn't have any money. For context, I'm an accountant, and I earn roughly $120K per year. Wow. He works a dead-end job as a customer service rep for a company nearby, earning $40K per year. I've tried to be very patient with him. We've been together for 4 years, and he always has a certificate or a program that he's enrolling in to better himself, but he never actually sees the program through. He takes his time completing it, and I've just grown tired. We can't do anything, really, unless it's on my dime, because he does not have any excess money. So there are no trips, minus the ones I've paid for. We rarely go on dates. He doesn't have his share of the bills on time, even though we don't split it 50-50. I pay like 70% and he pays 30%. He doesn't ever have his share on time. I've worked very hard to get to where I am, and I want to get married. I want to have children. I want to buy a home. Those are obviously things he's not ready for because he's so financially weak. To make matters worse, he inherited $30K from a family member and he didn't do anything with it. And by do anything with it, I mean he gambled it all away, trying to make fast money and was left with nothing. That was really a game changer for me because I was very certain that he would use $30K more wisely, considering his position. I mean, he didn't even use it to buy me a ring or to put money aside for our future. The money is completely gone. He confessed to me after it was gone that he had a gambling addiction. He spent all the money, but he said he wouldn't do it again. That was about 6 months ago. Quite frankly, he doesn't even have money to gamble at this point. He's now being enrolled in a program where he's trying to obtain another certificate. I don't really know how that's going to bode or if it's going to pay off. I'm now sitting here pretty much waiting while he plays catch-up because of the decisions that he's made. We just renewed our lease, so we have about 11 months left on our lease. I don't want to give him an ultimatum, but I'm at the point where if I don't see a major shift soon, I'm going to have to move on. Really, I start to wonder sometimes if I've waited for too long already. I also think that I'm growing resentful towards him. He was in the same position that he was in when we got into the relationship 4 years ago, and I feel like I've grown and made advancements in my life and my career. OP, your post is worded kind of weirdly, because it seems like your main issue with him is that he doesn't have a lot of money, that he's broke, he makes $40K, which, in the grand scheme of things isn't a bad salary. But the problem isn't that he doesn't make a lot of money. I mean, there are lots of loving, happy couples who make $40K a year. The problem is that he's a loser with a gambling addiction. You rarely go on dates. You don't need a lot of money to go on dates. You could walk at the park. You could go hiking. You could have movie night. I mean, there are a lot of cheap date options. He doesn't spend time with you or put effort into you because he has a gambling addiction. So don't focus on the money thing. The money thing is irrelevant. What matters is he's just a loser. Also, OP said that he gambled all the money away because he wanted to make fast money. Gambling is actually a really great way to make fast money if you're the one who owns the casino. Our next Reddit post is from Deleted. I'm a 35-year-old guy. My 26-year-old brother impregnated my ex-wife, who's 27, and is engaged to marry her. How do I move on going forward? I started dating my ex-wife, Key, when I was 14 and she was 15. Her parents were terrible, so we lived together with my family throughout our relationship. So her and my family are very close. She and I got married shortly after I turned 18. We divorced 2 years ago as we just realized we were growing in different directions. She was ready to start a family. I wasn't, as I was finishing up school and beginning my career. It felt like a mutual agreement, but we obviously remained close as she was a part of my family. After we divorced, I moved across the country to pursue my career. At the beginning of the month, I was FaceTiming my mother for her birthday, and she turned the camera towards Key and my brother Jay sitting next to each other on the couch, which was not out of the ordinary. I noticed Key's weight gain and said, "Dang, girl, you're getting thick. You look like you're pregnant." There was an awkward pause, and then the conversation with my mother continued. The next morning, Key called me and told me that she is pregnant. She's due in June, and my brother Jay is the father, and they're engaged to be married in May. She told me they'd been seeing each other for over a year. I won't go into detail about my reaction, but I shortly after hearing the news hung up in her face, and I haven't spoken to her since that conversation. My very next call was to my mother. I asked her how long she knew, and she responded only since the beginning of the year when Key started showing, and she noticed how close they seemed and confronted them. Would you also believe that my mother was defending them? My mother told me that Key is family, and she's carrying a family member, and that we just have to accept what we have, even if the circumstances are unfortunate. Trying to tell me that I've moved away and on with my life. She agreed that my brother is messed up, but won't do anything further. I haven't spoken to her since. My last call was to my brother, who told me he didn't mean for it to happen, it just did, and he's in love with her, and he's gonna take care of her and his kid. I haven't spoken to him, since the only person I kinda keep in contact with is my sister. She claims she didn't know either, but I'm sure she did. Here are some facts that make this even more messed up. When I visited home last year in July, Key and I did the deed nearly every day for 2 weeks. Before that, she flew to visit me for a week in March where we also passionately hugged. Also, my brother just finished up a divorce because of his infidelity and is actively going to court for custody issues with his 2 kids from that marriage. I speak to Jay and Key every few weeks, and neither of them mentioned anything. This makes me believe that things were going on while she and I were married, and while he was married as well. My therapist doesn't even have any answers for me. Obviously, this has caused me a lot of stress and endless crying and frustration, and I'm exhausted trying to figure out how I truly feel about the situation. My thoughts right now are if they continue to support this BS, I will not see or speak to any of them ever again. Well, OP, you already live on the other side of the country, which is 50% of the way towards going no contact, so why not go the rest of the way? Your family sounds awful. That was r/relationships, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.